let me just keep talking. Hi, Kris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom shakalaka done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Kris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They are international. They are everywhere in the world. So if you need to get to a therapist, go to BetterHelp.com/Kris Godinez. Fill out some questions and they will place you with a licensed master's level or PhD level therapist in your area. So boom, there it is. Thank you, BetterHelp. Okay, so today's current event. John and I were just reading about Matthew Perry. He passed away earlier this summer because of ketamine overdose, and the more details that are coming out about that, the angrier I am getting. So apparently, yes, he was on ketamine legitimately for depression, etc. However, he apparently was able to get and use ketamine on his own from 2 doctors, I think it was, that we looked up, 2 doctors and 2 personal assistants. And the personal assistants had no clue how to administer ketamine. The one personal assistant did multiple injections of ketamine. Ketamine is, okay guys, it's a controlled substance. It's a horse narcotic is what it is. And they have found the off-label use is effective in helping with stubborn, resistant depression. So ketamine is not your first line of defense. Let me be very clear about that. So if you are having depression, the first thing you do is talk therapy, okay? And then you move up from there. From talk therapy, if that doesn't work, then you move into maybe antidepressants, okay? But you go through a psychiatrist that can prescribe, that knows what they're doing. If the antidepressants don't work, very often psychiatrists will then say, this is not working, this is resistant, we need to try something else, and then they'll refer you to probably a clinic that does ketamine. So again, ketamine is not what you jump to. It's not a magic bullet, okay? And drug addicts, and God love Matthew Perry, he was a drug addict. Drug addicts are known for constantly trying to be their own apothecary, their own doctor, their own, whatever. And they are really bad about trying to medicate themselves, self-medicate. They self-medicate all the time. That's why they're drug addicts. So they're trying to numb whatever they're feeling, or they're trying to feel better, or whatever. So the fact that these 2 doctors signed off on this and contributed to his death just infuriates me no end. If you are going to start ketamine treatments, I want you to understand there's dangers to it, like there is any medication, okay? And it's not your first go-to. Your first go-to is you start something low, right? Talk therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you move up the chain, if that's the case. So do your research if you're going to... yes, it's a great treatment for PTSD and depression. Honestly, I'm not bagging on ketamine. I'm not. I'm bagging on the fact that these 2 doctors knew he was an addict, the 2 assistants, and one of them, what did you tell me her name was? The queen of ketamine, is that what? Yeah, so she was a drug dealer, essentially. So it angers me because it gives ketamine a bad name, which makes me mad because it has its place. It does, and number 2, somebody who was talented and who was vulnerable was taken advantage of by people who didn't care. They didn't care about him. You don't give a drug addict multiple injections of something if you care about them. So, if you're going to do ketamine, you talk about it with your doctor. You make sure that whatever clinic you're going to is well regulated and is well, knows what they're doing, has good reviews, etc., etc., etc. He didn't need to die. He didn't need to die. He did not need to die. And that makes me angry. So anyway, that's it. Ketamine, like I said, is really good with resistant depression. It's great. I've had several clients that have gone on to ketamine, and it definitely helped them. It did, because we tried everything else. We did talk therapy, we did, antidepressants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing worked. And finally it was like, okay, I want you to talk to your doc about maybe doing something off-label, something a little different. And they did, and it worked. So yeah, and when medical professionals, and I use the term loosely with those two, do things like that, it harms the patients that need the ketamine and that are using it legitimately, because then everybody overreacts, and then they're like, oh, can't use ketamine, and it's just like, stop. These people were immoral and unethical and didn't care about Mr. Perry at all, period, obviously. And the two assistants, especially the one that was the queen of ketamine, I'm like, throw the book at him. That's all I've got to say. Throw the book at him. So anyway, there is that. That just came up. John and I were talking about it on the road, and I was like, I should probably bring this up, because again, like I said, ketamine has its place, but again, it's not your go-to first thing out the gate. It's like, if you're having depression, try talk therapy first, then work your way up. If nothing works, then you go to the ketamine. Ketamine is literally like the last line of defense. So anyway, there it is. Okay, so today's topic is, why are we as survivors of abuse so afraid of our emotions? What is up with that? So let's talk about PTSD a little bit. Let's talk about the nature of trauma and the nature of abuse. If we had parents, a parent or two, that were abusive, back it up. Let me try to get my thoughts in order here. Abusers are usually antisocial, because the rules of the world don't apply to them, or narcissistic, or both. Okay, and usually a dark triad. So they're antisocial and narcissistic and Machiavellian. They're control freaks. So if they are our parent, narcissists and antisocial don't do emotions well, if at all. And if they have an emotion, they do not have them the same way that healthy, normal people have them. Okay. Emotions to them are very threatening, okay? So genuine, real emotion, that means any emotion, whether that's sad or scared or hurt or confused or angry or any of them, any genuine emotion enrages them, because they don't feel it. And they know they don't feel it, and they can't understand it. So it's threatening to them because they cannot understand it. You and I, we have empathy. And so we can, if somebody's having an emotion, we go, oh, geez, I know how that feels. Ooh, what can I do? Are you okay? Can I help? Do you need anything? Do you want me to leave you alone? We have empathy because we can feel it, and we know what that feels like. And we don't want other people to feel poorly or bad. So abusers don't, though. Abusers can't feel it. It scares them, and they're threatened by it because they don't know what to do with it. So if you've got a parent or two that is narcissistic or some sort of disorder, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't have empathy, that doesn't process emotions the way that healthy, normal people process emotions, when that child has a big emotion, they're going to get pissed and they're going to shut it down. So we, as the kids, very quickly learn, oh my God, emotions are bad. I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get yelled at. Because honestly, it's like, I feel, I wish I had everybody in front of me so we could talk about this, because there's so much to talk about with this. How many of us, and I'd be willing to bet it's a lot, how many of us had a parent or two that when we had an emotion either punished us, like outright slapped us, or threatened to? I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something to be mad about. I'll fix your wagon. That kind of thing. I mean, that's a lot. A lot of us got that. And it's because the narcissistic parent was threatened by the emotion that we were feeling. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know what to do with that. What is this emotion? So then we internalize that, and our little kid at that age shuts down. And then our internal child stays shut down. So that if we don't get help, we grow up, we've got all these, inner children, and none of them know what to do with an emotion because it's scary to us. Now, the other part of that too, even teachers, yes, absolutely. Oh, honey, you and I could talk. In my book, What's Wrong with Your Dad, I talked about a first grade teacher I had, and she punished me because I had a sense of humor, because I asked a question, because, whatever. And I was her scapegoat. She was always trying to find a reason to get at me. And I'm convinced she was a narcissist, 110%. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. So they shut the kids down, and kids are then not feeling safe to express happiness even. How many of us feel guilty expressing happiness? Probably a lot. How many of us feel scared expressing joy? How many of us feel scared expressing sadness? How many of us hate crying? I used to. I did. Because it wasn't safe. In a narcissistic, dysfunctional, toxic family, if we cried, that was vulnerable. So narcissists view tears as weakness. They don't understand that tears are strength. We're able to regulate our emotions. They're not. What they do is they sit on it, and then they find an excuse to blow like Mount Vesuvius. Okay, they rage, they scream, they yell, they throw things, they don't allow themselves to feel the softer emotions ever, because they're narcissists. And because they view the softer emotions as weakness. They do. So when we have a softer emotion, they're going to punish. They're going to go after, they're going to punish, they're going to harm, they're going to hurt. They're going to make fun of, they're going to whatever, because they don't know what to do with it. It threatens them. They're angry. That's the only emotion they've got, is anger. They really don't know how to deal with anything. And they love to shame. They love to shame. That is really their big thing, is shaming. So if you're dealing with somebody who's trying to shame somebody, especially a kid, you're dealing with a narcissist. You're dealing with an abuser. If you're dealing with somebody who's putting the kid down and making them wrong for crying, you're dealing with a narcissist. You're dealing with an abuser. You're dealing with somebody who's antisocial. So that's why they do the things that they do, is because it threatens them. It scares them. It frightens them. They don't know what to do with it. So, okay, so we get punished for having emotions, right? We grow up, and now we have emotions, and we fight them like nobody's business. So I can't tell you the number of times I have clients that will sit down and start to cry and stop themselves and start apologizing. I'm so sorry. I'm like, whoa. You got nothing to apologize for. Tears are cathartic. Tears are normal. Not crying is not normal. Every single mammal on the face of this planet tears up when they feel pain, emotional or physical. Right now, with the tears, you're feeling emotional pain. It's okay. Okay? So that's what they do, is they shut us down and keep us from crying. So, because we're afraid. We're afraid. Now, let's take a step back and look at PTSD. So we've got PTSD from all of the verbal abuse that we had to go through from these abusive parents, right? So they were verbally abusive. They were shameful. They put us down. They made us feel ashamed of being a normal human being, okay? So we're dealing with shame. We're dealing with fear. We're dealing with, especially if we were little kids raised by a narcissist or two, then we're dealing with adults that could do whatever they wanted to us, and often did. So it's the fear of being out of control. It's the fear of having somebody else have control. So this is a part of it as well, because when we really connect to our emotions, especially the softer ones, especially the sadness and the anger. If we really allow ourselves to connect to it, and if we really connect to it, that first few times that we really connect to it, oh my goodness, is that scary. And because it feels like, let's talk about crying, for example. When we really connect to the sad, when we really connect to how deeply we've been betrayed and harmed and hurt by those people, then we allow ourselves to cry, right? And when we really cry, and it's an ugly cry, it feels like it's never going to stop. It does. It feels like it will never end. And the truth of the matter is, it will end, because one, we'll either get exhausted, or two, we'll run out of water, because, you know, we're made out of water and you need to drink water, and tears are water. So, but you know, we get through it. We get through it. Now, with the anger, same thing. Oh, and it's okay to be angry. I did one on anger not too long ago. If you have not watched it, you probably should. Being righteously angry with your abuser is 100% okay. Now, being righteously angry at your abuser in front of them, probably not safe. So if you've got a huge amount of anger towards the abuser, write it out. Get it out of your head, get it onto paper, right? And you can say whatever you want, because they're never going to see it. You're going to burn it, okay? But when we first connect with that level of anger, it's frightening to that inner child, because we were never allowed to have anger, righteous or otherwise, sadness. You know, we weren't allowed to cry. We weren't allowed to ugly cry. We weren't allowed to, you know, be joyous and funny and silly and dance. And none of that was okay. So I see somebody saying, is it okay to be angry? I got to answer that. In my book, What's Wrong with Your Dad, I talk about how when I first started doing therapy, everybody said I was angry all the time. And I was pissed. I was really, really pissed. You know, John would joke, this is Kris happy. This is Kris sad. This is Kris just sitting there. You know, I was pissed because I had a lot to be pissed about. And we do have a lot to be pissed about. When somebody is abusive to us, especially if it's a parent, especially if it's somebody that is supposed to be there to protect us, to take care of us, to show us how to, and what they do instead is to harm us, to hurt us, to put us down, to shame us, to use us for whatever they want or need. Oh, good God, you've got a lot to be angry about. That's righteous anger, okay? One of the funny things that my father used to tell me was, oh, anger is a futile emotion. Well, it's because he didn't want any of his kids really, truly angry at him, because we all hated his freaking guts. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, the abusers are the ones, I mean, they can get angry. They can throw things. They can throw punches. They can slap. They can hurt. They can harm. But God forbid you raise your voice or give them the look or put on a tone. So you've got to start training yourself that it's okay. All emotions are okay. And as I say that, I can hear every inner child out there going, oh my God. Yeah, they're all okay. Their emotions are not good or bad. They just are. It's what we do with them that make them good or bad. Okay? So, bad is how the abuser dealt with anger. The abuser would deal with anger by slapping and hitting and throwing things and screaming and yelling and saying awful things. Okay? That's not okay. But if you're writing it out, getting it out of your head, getting it onto paper, and you're saying whatever you need to say, and it could be 27 pages of FU, because I told you about that one, you know, 27 pages, FU, 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 FU. If that's what you need to do, do it. Then trot it out to the barbecue, light it on fire, let the smoke carry the words to heaven or hell, probably hell, you know, and let it go. Let it go. You don't need to stay angry. You can express it, acknowledge it, validate it. That's the key, is validating your emotion. Really, truly allowing the emotion in a safe and non-harmful way. The other thing I like to do with anger, because anger obviously is my easier emotion to access because I was well trained by my dad. The other thing to do is get a punching bag. I love punching bags and just punching the living crap out of the punching bag. After about literally a minute or two, I will be sobbing. And that's because I had to burn off the anger first to get to the softer emotion underneath. So anger is the bodyguard of hurt and sad and fear. It is. And so usually when people get angry, if somebody's really, really angry, I'll show you somebody who's terrified. I mean, they may be coming off as tough guy or tough girl or whatever, but underneath that veneer, I can guarantee you, is a puddle of yuck. It's fear, it's sad, or it's hurt. And that's what drives anger. So getting to that real emotion underneath, let's talk about ugly crying. For a lot of us, it was not safe to cry. And we talked about why. It also doesn't feel safe because we got punished or made fun of or put down or whatever. So one of the things that I suggest to start allowing yourself to have that ugly cry, find a safe place in your house. Make a room your safe place. It could be your closet. It could be your bedroom. It could be the bathroom. It could be anywhere. Let that be your safe place where you can go and experience ugly crying. And it's okay. We need to let off that steam. We do. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score. Excellent book. If we hang on to all of this stuff, we're going to explode. Really, literally, it's going to come out sideways. So all of these emotions have got to go somewhere, okay? And you don't want them coming out sideways. And what the inner child tends to do is we tend to take it out on people that are safe because it's the safer option. Instead of taking it out on the thing or the person that we need to, we take it out on our partner, or we take it out on a friend, or we take it out on ourselves or whatever. And you don't want to do that. You want to be able to express the emotions and to have the emotions and to feel the emotions and to process the emotions without hurting yourself or anybody else, and feeling safe doing it. So a lot of times we've been so hardened by the abuse, by the abuser, by all of the horrible things that have been said and done to us, that some people can't even cry at all. Like, it doesn't even start. Like, So what I suggest for that is, again, find a safe place. Find a safe place, put on sad music, watch a sad video. That's what I started doing. And it helped, because it helped me access all of that stuff. Read a sad book, or read a book that relates to how you felt when you were a kid and you were being abused. It really does help. So, and it's really important that you let whoever is in your life that is a support know what's going on so that they can support you. Now, here's the other part of that. Part of the reason why we don't show our emotions is because along with showing our emotions, we were probably also asking for help, either verbally or non-verbally. And what happened to us when we asked for help? We got punished. We got hit, we got harmed, we got yelled at, we got screamed at, we got embarrassed, we got shamed, we got whatever. And so we learned very quickly that no help was coming. And so it's really hard for us to be vulnerable because it feels like, again, we're going to be abandoned. I know. It just, those people, It's kind of like, karma is going to come for you, and it is not going to be pretty. So, yeah. It is really important to understand that this is all interconnected. These different aspects of how we process post-traumatic stress disorder are not disconnected. They're all connected, And so part of it is the abandonment. We don't want to be abandoned again. We don't want to be harmed again. So what is a part of PTSD? Avoidance. And in our little inner child minds, the best way to avoid it is to never feel it again. Unfortunately, that's not really the way it works. So it's, again, if you resist it, it persists. So we may not be saying it out loud all the time, but it's running in the background. So what you want to do is bring it to the forefront. Acknowledge it. Validate yourself. Validate your feelings. You have a right to have any and all emotions. You do. Is it going to feel weird? Yeah. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Oh, heavens, yes. Absolutely. You're going to not like it. Really. The first few times I really allowed myself to ugly cry, I felt scared because I was vulnerable. I felt, like all of the stuff was bubbling up. Again, it's never going to stop. I'm going to cry forever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And That's why I'm saying it's really good to have support. It's really good to let your partner or your friend or whoever you go to for support. Now remember, they have to be a true support. They cannot be disordered or toxic or anything else, because they will do the same thing the abusive parents did. So you let them know what you're working on. Hey, I'm working on having all of my emotions. So for me, what John did for me, which was huge, is when I got mad, he would ask me, what's under the mad? And then I would tell him to go F you. And then he'd be like, no, seriously, what's under the mad? And then I'd have to stop and figure out what was really driving the mad. And usually, not always, but usually it was hurt or sad, you know? So you want to get to what is the core, what is the real emotion underneath the anger. And then when you get to the sad, that's the real emotion. They hurt us, they harmed us, they betrayed us. No child should be bullied, should be yelled at, screamed at, thrown things at, called names, etc., by their own parent. What the actual F? You know what I'm saying? So there's a huge amount of betrayal. And then that leads to righteous anger. So it's kind of like you're going to be bouncing back between all of these emotions. So that's why it's a really good idea to get a punching bag or to write it out, because you're going to be going all over. And sometimes even writing out the sadness is a great way to do it. So write poetry, write a song, paint, do whatever you need to do to connect to that emotion that you've been resisting. Okay, really important to allow. So to get to those emotions, so that's the next question I often get is, okay, how do I get to those emotions? You got to give yourself permission, and you got to talk to your inner children, because the inner children are the ones that are stopping you out of fear. Hold one moment. So the inner children are afraid. They're afraid of being punished. They're afraid of being hurt. They're afraid of being harmed. They're afraid of being abandoned. So when you do the mirror work, okay, you're literally talking to your inner children, as well as your adult self, but you're literally talking to your inner children. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? I know it's okay for you to have all of your emotions. It's okay. I give you permission. I give you permission to cry. I give you permission to be angry. I give you permission to be happy. I give you permission to be joyous. I give you permission to have all emotions. And then walk out and start seeing how you start allowing yourself to start having emotions. Work the Inner Child Workbook by either Catherine Taylor or Regaining the Inner Child by Lucia Cappuccioni. Both of those are really good. Work the Self-Esteem Workbook. And I know everybody's like, but wait a minute, what does self-esteem have to do with emotions? Well, when you really understand your worth and you really understand your value and you really remember who the bleep you are, there's a bracelet out there that says remember who the bleep you are. And I'm like, I need to get that one. So when you really remember who you are, okay, you remember that you are worthy, and you remember that you are human, and you remember that, hey, humans have emotions. Guess what? It's okay for me to have emotions. It's okay. And then you allow yourself to have emotions. Speak to yourself in the mirror the way that you would to one of your inner children. What do you want to tell them? And that's another thing you can do. Do some guided imagery with those kids that got shut down. So what I would suggest is imagine going to someplace safe, okay? You imagine someplace safe, you call your inner children to you, whichever one got shut down around emotions. You let them know in no uncertain terms, hey, I got your back. I'm here for you. You helped me get to where I am. I'm so proud of you. You're awesome. I am here for you, and I am gonna help you feel safe when you feel sad or angry or hurt or scared or betrayed. Is it gonna be comfortable? Probably not. But you know what? I am here for you. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is gonna harm you. I won't let them, okay? Then what you can do, after you tell them that, ask them what they need. What do you need, little one? What do you need? And oftentimes what the inner child will say back is, I just wanna be loved, or I just wanna be heard, or I just wanna be believed, you know? And then you let them know, I love you, I hear you, and I believe you. You're not wrong. Then you could go back to that point in time where the shutdown happened, where that parent stopped that child from crying or being angry or anything else. And what you're going to do is you're going to be right behind your inner child. You're going to have your hands on their shoulders. And the second that parent or that spouse or whoever shut you down says you can't cry, be angry, etc., you're going to step in front and you're going to say whatever the heck you wanted to say to them. Throat punch them, do whatever you need to. Seriously. I personally like the throat punch, but you know. So, not that I have anger or anything. So yeah, you're going to protect that inner child. You're going to show that inner child that you are there for them and that that person no longer gets to abuse them. Ever. And write a goodbye letter to the abuser and let the inner child write the goodbye letter. Seriously, what does that little 6-year-old need to say? 7-year-old, 4-year-old, 2-year-old. What does that 2-year-old need to say to that abuser? When they shut him down, what does that 2-year-old need to say? You let him say it. And at the end of the goodbye letter, adult you gets to speak. And you say whatever you need to say to that abuser. And at the end of the letter, you go, you know what, Mother Clucker? You don't get to live in my head rent-free one more GD minute. Not one more minute. You are evicted. You are gone. Bye-bye. I rebuke you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Go pound sand. And then trot the letter out to the barbecue and burn it. And let the smoke go to wherever that person is. Carry the words to them. So anyway, that is why we are terrified of our emotions. So when an emotion comes up, give yourself permission. Allow yourself to feel. You got to feel it to heal it. It's not going to get better otherwise because you're just like, holding it in and sitting on it and not really processing it. So gentle with you, drink lots of water, make a safe place. Get the books I recommend. Get CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Get the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. Get the Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor or Regaining the Inner Child by Lucia Cappuccioni. Get the Facing Codependency by Pia Melody and or The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Both of them are great books. So whichever one speaks to you, or if both of them speak to you, work it. Now, here's the other thing I want to make sure you guys all understand. This is not just I'll do it when I have time. Well, if you do that, you're never going to have time. Because how good are kids at avoiding things? And we avoid because of the trauma. So what you want to do is set aside time for you. Because you, above all other people, are worthy of your own love, your own time, and your own attention. Start with a half an hour a day. Work on the Self-Esteem Workbook or work on the Inner Child Workbook. Half an hour a day. Do mirror work daily, especially if you're struggling with emotions. Do it daily. I'm still doing mirror work daily, and it helps. So anyway, there it is. I think we are going to dive into questions. Do we have questions?
There's a couple. Let me find them.
Okay.
I gotta go back and find them.
Hold on, John's got to try to find them.
Does a narcissist live in the past?
Yes. Does a narcissist live in the past? Yes. They live in their glory days. They're the ones that, I don't know if you remember Bruce Springsteen's song Glory Days. That's kind of narcissist. They live when they were, young and famous and this and that and the other thing, that they constantly live in their glory days. Yeah, absolutely. They can't be in the present because the present is uncomfortable for them, especially if they're aging. Aging narcissists do not like being in the present. They would much rather live in the early part of their lifetime because they were young and beautiful and this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, they very much often do dwell in the past, and they do not have realistic ideas of how the present is. So, for example, my dad was constantly living in the 1940s. Why? Because that was his glory days. That was when he was in the Marines and a pilot and fighting in World War II and all of that, and he loved it, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And he would constantly talk about it. He was constantly reliving his experiences and all of that stuff, not from a PTSD point of view, but from a glory days kind of point of view. And he had no concept of what it was like to be a kid or what it was like to have to spend money on school supplies or anything else. And he would scream at my mom saying she spent too much money. And his idea of how much she should have spent is what you would have spent in the 1940s. Psycho killer. Yeah, he cuckoo, like cuckoo, checked out, not present. So yeah, they absolutely do live in the past. Yeah.
There's some follow-up. It says, my late narcissist mother only talked about things that happened 50 years ago.
Yeah, that was
and
my
always
dad.
dragged up stuff from our childhood, which was mostly negative or made up stuff.
Yes, so they so they will drag up stuff from the distant past. They will make stuff up. They will only bring up negative stuff. They'll never bring up stuff that's happy that you did or great that you did. They're trying to embarrass you, or they're trying to humiliate you, or they're trying to shame you, or whatever. Yeah, so they absolutely do that. Yeah, you're not wrong.
All right.
Yes.
Here. Mobile thing is really weird.
Oh, mobile is being weird.
Okay. So they love the work you do. Most people do.
Thank you.
Do you have strategies for those of us whose narcissistic personality disorder tormentors die?
Oh, yes.
I'm aware of the dynamic of peptide addiction, love bombing, followed by more abuse, gaslighting, and abandonment. So they're just,
Okay, so when our abusers die, let me repeat the question to make sure people understand. Do I have strategies for people whose abusers have died? Yes. It mostly has to do with writing and burning letters. It really does. You want to educate the hell out of yourself so that you recognize a narcissist like literally a mile away, so you can just step to the side and let them sail right on past. For sure. Number 2, we've got to get over our weirdness about death. Okay? In our society, we've got this weird thing about, number 1, if the narcissist was a parent, we've got this weird thing about, oh, you can't say anything bad about your mama and daddy. Why the hell not? They were a monster. Thank you. My dad especially. So we've got this weird thing about death. It's like, oh, but they're dead. You can't speak ill of the dead. And I'll tell you what, my response to that each and every time is, watch me. Watch me speak ill of the dead. I dare my dead grandmother to show up in my bedroom, because I will hand that biatch a piece of my mind. You betcha. My mom's mom, holy mackerel, what a narc. Seriously. So give yourself permission to speak however the hell you need to, whether they're dead or alive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And honestly, if they do show up in your bedroom to, be upset about it, give them a piece of your mind. Seriously. Anyway, so.
I believe that's it.
Is that it for questions?
I mean, you already answered the one that said,
about anger?
Is it okay to be angry?
It's totally okay to be angry. And it's totally okay to be angry at a dead abuser. It totally is. I think this whole thing that we have about you can't speak ill of the dead, and oh, but they're your mother, or oh, but they're your father. Oh, but they were my abuser. How about you go pound sand? Seriously. We have a right to speak the truth, but I'll tell you who wants to shut us down. It's the abusers. Abusers out there do not want us speaking the truth, and it scares the hell out of them when we do. So I say, speak your truth. Loud and proud, people. Loud and proud. Because it happened to us. I'm not going to deny, I've had people be like, oh, well, but, your father is dead when you wrote that book. And I'm like, yeah, but my mom was alive and she totally supported it. So go kiss my hind end. You know what I'm saying? And so they were like, oh, but your dad's dead. He can't defend himself. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. If he wanted to be spoken well of in a book, then how about he not act like a completely incestuous mother clucker? There you go. Have a nice day. Go pound sand. Seriously, you've got to get to that point, guys. It doesn't matter what other people think. Other people's opinions of us is literally none of our business. They can think whatever they want. And anyone who sides with the abuser is either a narcissist themselves, an abuser themselves, or they're just pathetically ignorant. If after you've educated them and they still side with the abuser, you can tell them to go pound sand. So there that is. All right, guys, I'm going to stop for today unless anybody else has any other questions. Next week, I am going to be talking about bullying. And I'm going to be talking about bullying for kids. You need to watch for what happens to kids, because this scares me. We're going into the school year. Bullying is a thing still, which I just, oh my God. So I want to talk about bullying, things to watch for, you know, physical things, emotional things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, changes in behaviors, all of that fun stuff. So, all right, you guys, take care of yourselves, drink lots of water, allow the emotions. All of them are okay. Write and burn letters, do the workbooks, make time for you. You have worth and you have value and you are worthy of working on yourself. Don't forget that. All right, my loves, take care and I will talk to you later. Bye. Oops.